Reactive Training Systems.
This is a Titans of Powerlifting episode. That's TOP for short. My partner for these is Dom Sirianni. He's an experienced competitor, a gym owner, and a classic world champion. In each of these, Dom and I will be talking to the Titans, the ones who've paved the way for powerlifting to be what it is today. There's a lot of wisdom to be gained from knowing the roots of our sport, and these are the people who can teach us. So when me and Dom were talking about people that we might want to interview for this Titans of Powerlifting series, somebody that came to mind for both of us was Beau Moore. We both have known Beau for a lot of years at this point, and he's been competing in powerlifting since the early 90s. And it's not just that he has been competing for a long time. He's competed in some of the most iconic powerlifting meets that have happened since the early 90s. He's competed in the Mountaineer Cups, the WPO Finals, New England Record Breakers, Raw Unity 1, 2, 3, and 4, USAPL Raw Nationals, IPF Classic Worlds. I mean, the guy's done at least 115 separate competitions over a 26-year career. That's an average of 4 to 5 competitions a year. And if anything, he's speeding up. He did 8 competitions in 2017. Beau has been there and done that, and has talked to all the people and knows all the people that were, the heroes of powerlifting when I was coming up in the sport. And I'm sure it's the same for Dom as well. So Beau was real high up on our list as far as people to talk to when starting this series. And I think, especially if you're newer to the sport, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Mountaineer Cup or WPO Finals or New England Record Breakers, this will definitely be an episode that you don't want to miss. We cover a lot of stuff that's really the stuff of powerlifting history, and Beau was there for it. He lifted in these meets. He knows the people. So I don't know. It was really important to me to get a chance to talk to Beau, and I hope it's meaningful for you guys as well.
It's gonna be impossible to get anybody on the phone.
No, I do Skype calls like 3 or 4 times a week with my team and everything. So first time I did this one though, it's pretty cool actually.
Yeah. Appreciate somebody that literally holds every single world record in the IPF for M2 getting on the phone with us and kind of telling us your journey.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, man. Dude, so I was looking over, trying to do a little bit of homework before we got to this point, and holy crap, man. Like, I was looking back over your meet history and stuff, and it's intense, man. I counted at least 115 separate competitions over the last 26 years.
Yeah, and that's just in that federation, right? It's a long time.
Yeah.
Is that everything you're looking at?
Yeah, that was on Open Powerlifting.
Oh, yeah. I did, yeah. Yeah, sometimes my body goes, wow. What happened? Yeah, it's been a fun ride, that's for sure. It's been a fun but long ride. But I still enjoy it, though. I still think I'm 30, even though I move around like I'm 60 or 65 some days. But other than that, I like to get after it. No doubt about that.
Yeah, man. So you are just kind of coming from the Arnold. What's coming up next for you?
Well, I did the Worlds in June of last year. And, the last several years, I've just been I just do the lifts because I was doing them. I just took a break from the squatting and deadlifting, and I'm going to start back squatting and deadlifting. Actually, I deadlifted for the first time last night. It's been about a year,
Really?
And, I just need it. I mean, it's kind of when you just, you're just talking about what's next for me, kind of like what you just said, when you're looking at my meet history or over the years, I never took a break. This is the first time I took a break. And and the only thing I didn't like though is as I'm taking a break was the fact that, at 53, it's different than when you're 33 or even 43, because even at 43, you kind of recover a little slower, but halfway decent. But 53, it's like all of a sudden is now your body's not used to doing those movements. And I didn't like the way my stomach and my back have been like steel rods forever, just from doing those movements. And when I quit doing those movements, and not doing anything for them, walking around at 370 plus pounds, or 380, whatever it was that weighed that day, depending on what I ate, I was like, man, I got to start squatting and deadlifting just for, just to keep that core intact.
Yeah, just to feel like you're strong and stable in day to day, huh?
And then the challenge with a guy like me, the way I'm wired, is I can't do that just for fun. I got to have something to go after. So I'll be at the, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll be at the Raw Nationals in October.
Fantastic, man.
So that's really what's up next for me. That and the Bench Nationals, and then the Raw Nationals. That's what's up next for me.
Can you just tell everybody that may or may not know, who Beau Moore is, kind of sort of how you got started in powerlifting? And I kind of see meet results back to 1993. I'm not sure if that's as far back as it goes, or it goes.
Yeah, it goes a little further, not much further than that, a little bit further than that. But I played a little bit of football, and then when football was over, I had to have something to do, and I've done some bench press meets along the way, late 80s, early 90s, nothing major, just little odds and ends. But I was I was playing a professional spring football league in Tampa, Florida, and the league just folded, and I was training at Gold's Gym in Tampa, and I met some guys, and we squatted and deadlifted for football, but back in the 80s, it's not like it is now. I don't think it was bench press, power clean, lat pulls, all the curls you could do, whatever. And I was always a 500 plus bencher, always, And, but these guys, man, they're like, I was like 300, 305 back when I was about 26, something like that. And these guys were in there squatting and deadlifting, and they asked me to work out with them, and I did. I didn't say nothing. And I took the bar out, what they were doing, like on my back. I never forget, it was like 500 and some pounds. Man, I felt like I was just going to buckle over, I was like, but I was so hard-headed and competitive, I wouldn't say a word. I would sit there, and after I do the lift or whatnot, kind of the same thing in the deadlift, learn how to do it properly, literally do it right, correctly, powerlifting style versus just messing around. I'd look at those guys, and I said, I'm going to tell you something. I know damn well if they can do it, I can do it, and I can do it better. That's just how it drove me. So I was always like an underdog type of deal to myself. I put myself in an underdog situation. That was usually when I was at my best. If someone did something, I'd be like, well, I can do that, and that just would drive me. So that's how it really got started. And then I just kind of, I did my first 80 FPA meet in 1993. I think I totaled like 1910 or something like that. I can't remember, but it was a little over 1900, not much. And then a couple guys were talking about who was going to win the state meet, and I was kind of standing there, and I said, hey, don't forget about me. And then I went there at the state meet and was fortunate enough to win that. And then my first nationals right after that, it was kind of the same thing. I think when our first nationals, they had in 1994, they had a whiteboard, and they had 319 class. They had to pick who would the rankings, almost like nominations, but it was just written in whiteboard. I was last. Well, you can see what happened that day, So I came in first that day, but that's the kind of stuff that kind of drove me. I enjoyed it. Just put myself in a competitive area where my mind would just, always be, if people think I couldn't do something, whether they did or not, I had no clue. That's just where I'd put my mind, And that drove me, just being competitive like that. Always has been that way.
So you had a lot of competitive, I guess the competition itself, was really pushing you. And then, you said that was kind of the early to middle 90s, and then competing in the 80 FPA. And then then I guess what comes after that, history-wise for you?
Well, I competed in the ADFPA. I love that organization. I just absolutely loved it. And then I did like a little money meet a long time ago, and then there's little challenges with that, and I wasn't too crazy about why we could or couldn't. I was always excited to represent the ADFPA or the USAPL even in those days. So I kind of decided, you know what, man, I'm going to go wherever the money is, and I went everywhere. And so wherever the money was, I'd show up, and that kind of drove me. I always enjoyed the ADFPA and the USAPL, but it was fun, to train the way we train and under conditions we do, and then you go compete against whoever, whenever, wherever, at any time, and you could hold your own. That was pretty exciting, just to show up and say, and then you go back to some USAPL meets, and so I kind of did that for probably till about 2005 maybe, and then when I was 40. My name would be thrown in there as others, who was the strongest men in the world at that time, as far as powerlifting is concerned. And I hated the equipment. Anyone who knew me, even in the ADFPA days, anyone who knows me knows I hated it. I was the biggest baby in the world, man. I would whine and cry and moan and groan, and it'd take 3 or 4 people to put the little Ends or Blast shirts on where you get about 30 or 40 pounds out of it. And it'd take like, the whole city to get it on you. And, but anyway, up to 2005, I just said I was just going to turn 40. And I was like, you know what? In my mind, whether I was right or wrong, but what I thought was, if we're ever going to find out who the strongest men in the country are, or the world, if we have to take all the stuff off, put a belt on and get after it, and we'll find out. And I believe that, one, because I wasn't as dedicated as some of the other guys of perfecting the equipment, because that's an art in itself. It's very hard to do. It's really like 2 different sports. But I got tired of people asking me how much you bench, and I would go from 755 to 600. I said, well, I bench 755, 770, and with this shirt on, but I could do 600 raw. And I kept asking myself, why do I keep going back that I can do 600 in a t-shirt? Well, because you're trying to explain that to people, and at that time, the powerlifters knew what that were, but the fans really didn't know. They didn't know what that was. So then that's how my raw career got started, and that's where I met Mike along the way as well. And I think I totaled, like, I think not all the meets are in that open powerlifting, but I think it was up to 28 times I totaled 2,000 pounds raw between the age of 40 and 48, and 3 times I went over 2,100 just with knee sleeves. So that's kind of what took place there.
So
you've done it all. You've done USPF, you did WPC,
everything.
WPO, Raw Unity, Mountaineers Cup.
Mountaineer Cups.
Everyone talks about that.
Yeah.
What were those like?
Well, it was great, because Ed would be there. At this time, me and Siders would go at it. Steve Goggins. So that was more single ply gear. So what I found interesting was, there was only a couple of us. Tony Conyers, which I think, in my mind, pound for pound, one of the strongest men ever walked the planet, still today, unbelievable. But there was only a couple of us that would switch from the double ply back then to the single ply, but the money was good. I mean, I think my biggest payday was like $5,000. We're on ESPN. I didn't care what we wore. This is,
yeah.
but the judging was real strict, and it was, I always felt that there were favorites, but it was great competition. But there was no gifts. I can tell you that. But yeah, it was awesome. I thought it was fantastic.
That was one
thing.
It
was really good too.
That was one thing that really stood out to me, was like looking through your competition history. Like, you'd done so many like these iconic meets, like you were freaking there for all that stuff, like WPO finals, New England record breakers, like
Oh yeah,
Raw
forgot
Unity
about
meets.
that.
Like, I mean, that's actually one that I'm curious to like hear what was it like about the New England record breakers, because that was one of the I
Yeah.
guess that was one of the first meets that really drew guys away from equipment to do it raw,
Yeah, it was, and that's a great description. When I switched over in 2005, I knew it was going to take. I knew it was going to take some decent names and humble. Not sound too conceited, but at that time, I had a pretty good name in the sport, and I knew. I told my buddies, I said, if I can stick with it and take all the, why are you doing this? This thing will grow. And you're right, Mike. That was, from my memory, that was our first gigantic, raw meet. I think it was 2006, I believe it was. It was really great. It was Kaz. I remember Ed Cohn was the head judge. Kazmar was all for it. He was the MC. He was the MC of it, and it was me, some a gentleman named Scott Smith, Mike Miller, Donnie Thompson, Brian Siders. We had a pretty good lineup, and it was pretty cool because it was kind of, some say they were going to do X amount of weight, and they, some couldn't, just had some unfortunate performances, and some of us, we did okay, and some did very good. So it was really, you're right. It was a good stamp on this is what's to come. This wasn't an amateur thing anymore. This wasn't what, guys just starting out. You lift raw before you get to the equipment. This was, hey man, you're putting your egos out there, because we're all just coming off those totals and it's even more so now than back then. We thought it was inflated then. I mean, you could put a pair of briefs on and they stood up by themselves. I freaked out, man. And you got these, you got these shirts, and now they went from the you got a denim shirt, then it went to the what's on the back, the Velcro on the back, then they cut the back, then they did. I mean, it just it was like changing like once every 6 months. So those totals, if you go back and look, they were really starting to climb higher and higher in like a 2 to 3 year span. They were getting crazy. I mean, at the Arnold, I squatted 1124. A lot of people don't know that. I took it on a fourth attempt for the world record. But I was probably only doing, realistically, probably right around 800 raw, which we didn't even know what raw was then. You just they didn't call it raw. You just in your training, and so when you take all that equipment off, there's a big ego thing. It's kind of like, you have to check your ego at the door, because if you're totaling at that time, I think my best total was only like 2557 back in the early 2000s, I believe, something like that, in the gear. And then you take that off and you're totaling in the high 2000s, right around 21 when I first started. That's a big difference. So my opinion is probably, I can see where some people, where that may have been an issue of, going from, if you're totaling 2600, now all of a sudden if you're not careful, you don't even total 2000. How do you explain that to you?
I remember, I mean, that's one thing that I remember from that. Well, I was, completely just a fan at that point, following things. And one of the noteworthy things that sticks out to me was Mike Miller's squad, actually, who had,
you said it.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, if it's going to be like that, I mean, but that's what happened, right? Like he had squatted.
No, it was
1200 in the IPA. I believe it was the IPA at the time.
Yep.
And there's a video of it, and I mean, it just looked terrible. It really did. And I mean, it was all the standard arguing, right? Like, oh, you can't judge depth from the front, and these guys are as strong as they can be without the gear too. And at the time, there's just no argument. But then I remember he went to the New England record breakers and came away with a 600-pound squat. And I mean, you go from 1200 to 600, and I don't know what else, if there was injury or anything, but 1200 to 600 is a tough pill to swallow in any sort of condition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then, the other side of it, where you got Donnie Thompson and Siders and Beau Moore, was
Yeah.
squatting big raw. And,
Yeah,
Johnny
absolutely.
Thompson, you started thinking of him now as a multiply guy, and Siders and
Right.
Moore at the time were, thought of as single ply guys, and you see, well, that's real strength right there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I found interesting is that was in the beginning. That's what I'm saying. It was kind of marries up with what I was saying about, that's a big risk for some guys back in those days when we first started. 'Cause some guys were great technicians. I had a lot of times when people ask me, "Oh, well, Beau, do you think which is better or which is harder, equipment or raw?" And everybody's reasoning could be a little bit different, but when I sat back, was fortunate enough to kind of do it all. It's just different parts of the sport, man. Even I had to come to the conclusion that one wasn't better than the other. It was because I had asked myself, Beau, why did you really get out of it? I did really want to find out who the strongest man in the world was, and I was just turning 40, and I knew my window's only been so long. I did know that. But the other thing is, I hated the equipment. I hated someone wrapping my knees. I hated putting that stuff on. So I was also looking for justifications to get out of it too. I found a good one, which was, let's find out who the strongest guys are. So they're both hard. Just like Blaine, he just did over 1,000-pound bench press at the Arnold. You know how hard that is? Just the fact of trying to get the bar to your chest or your top of your stomach, that alone should be a record, without killing yourself. That's hard to do. More or less pushing it up.
I mean,
so it's
I've
tough.
talked to him a couple times about like what it's like to hold 1,000 pounds in your hands like that, and I mean, that's a thing that's worth hearing him describe. It's just an experience that's out of this world, Like, I mean, it's a thing that deserves its own respect, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had to personally probably, I probably had to adjust in my early 40s on that because everybody at the time was attacking raw. They were attacking it, like, oh, that's weak. That's for, you're a sissy. And I'm kind of like, and every now and then I'd pop off going, well, I don't think many people are going to call me a sissy. And I kind of done it all. So I don't think that, and then you see it's just two different sports. They're all hard. I couldn't imagine getting back in a suit again. It's just hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
And you've done multiply as well as single ply. So you've really done it all. I mean, I don't know if people realize that when you say you've done it all, you've literally gotten under 1,000 pounds in a monolift in a
1124. 1,124 pounds. And that takes a lot of courage. And that's why I have the respect for it, because you got to have courage to get under that weight, regardless of what the equipment is you have on. And that was probably the hardest lift I've done in my life that day when I did that. It took me about, gosh, man, it's hard to find a video. I found one video on it, but it was like, I feel like it took like 3 seconds or maybe 4 seconds from the hole to the top, but I was very gifted, and the good Lord gifted me that I was able just to physically handle the weight, taking it out, where it doesn't, you feel like you're just going to get crushed. I mean, I was able just to get under there and pop that thing up and crack a little smile. Let's go, But, and I think with that equipment, that's what guys have to understand too. It's not that they shouldn't do it, but you got to understand your body type too. Some people's bodies are just meant different to handle different loads. So now when you add that equipment in there, and that you're going to add more load because the equipment's going to give you, it's going to give you a certain bounce out of the hole so you can do more. That necessarily doesn't mean your body structure is going to, hold up to that, in my opinion,
Yeah. Well, like speaking of the WPO stuff, that's something that I was curious to ask you about. So, I mean, as a guy who was there at WPO finals, which was at the Arnold, and then let's see, that would have been the 2005-ish time frame, somewhere in there.
3 years in a row, yeah, 3, 4, and 5, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think, Mike, that everyone that's listening to this is going to really even know what that is, which sounds crazy to everybody here.
No, fair point.
I think if you could talk about a little bit about Kieran Kidder and kind of that whole scene, Beau, we'd love to hear about it.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I have nothing but the utmost respect for him. You know, he took his own money, you know, and put it up. I mean, he had a dream, you know, he had a vision, and he started out in Daytona just putting on some money meets, and he just kept piling it in and piling it in. And, you know, we got to the Arnold, you know, and people don't, like what you said, don't realize I started competing in the Arnold. It was either 1997 or 1998 when it was bench only. That's how far back I go at the Arnold, you know, and there was only bench press, arm wrestling, and maybe catching a chicken running around the cage. I don't know. There wasn't much. And it was only 2 days. We only had 2 days. And but back to Kieran, you know, once he got it to the thing, he did it first class, and I know sometimes he got flack, but you know, we were just learning. People were just learning how to use social media, which would have been worse today than it is back then, you know, for the bad stuff. But you know, he poured his heart and soul into that organization. So as far as he's concerned, I just thought, you know, I had nothing but the utmost respect for him. The WPO itself was awesome. It's the template of how you want to do it, in my opinion. And we would go to the Arnold back in the days. If I remember correctly, you know how we're at now, the UFC pound is kind of open in the hallways. You know how it's open like that. So they would combine a bunch of rooms together. So it'd almost like being, if I could describe it, almost like an empty supermarket. If you went to go to the grocery store, a huge grocery store, but there's nothing in there. But it's just filled with chairs. The stage is up on the top. The music's blaring. They would have the lights, the motorcycles, the card girls. You know, all the wow factor. I remember I tell everybody this: you could walk out and get under 135 and raise your hands up in the air, and the crowd would go nuts. And I asked myself, I said, why was that? I think a lot of it's got to do is it was contained in one room, you know, and you had to show your badge. You know, you had to like check in before you could actually get in and see. And at the same time, too, there still wasn't a lot going on. I mean, there was stuff going on, but it wasn't like now. There wasn't all the different, you know, strongman had a little piece of it, too. They were there, especially in those days. But that was really about it. So powerlifting finally got on there, not just benching, powerlifting, strongman, arm wrestling. And I would sit in the back, and you'd have all these giants back there, and we all knew each one of us could beat anyone, can win on any given day. You know, me, Gary Frank, Andy Bolton, Donnie Thompson, Brent Smiskell, Steve Goggins, Ed Cohn did a couple of them. Matt Smith from West Side. You know, I mean, the list can go on. I mean, it was like, I call it like the monsters of the Midway. It was just. I mean, and the way it was kind of, the way it was kind of presented, if you thought you were all that in a bag of chips and you want to compete for money, man, regardless of what federation you went to, you you ponied up and you showed up. And it's not saying everybody should do that, but I don't think anybody who does that, they did something wrong. I think it's awesome, you know? So, you know, that's why I bring Conyers' names up a lot of times, because he did the same thing. He went all over. You know, that guy was just amazing. And, you know, there was a lot of good lifters there. You know, and there was some, you know, it was a good show. I will say that. It was a great show. The show was great.
And that was multiply in a monolift, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I used to get made fun of because I was so hard headed that the first several years I wouldn't do the monolift. I just get pissed off, and I'd walk it out. You know, I had like 950 on my back, 960. You know, back then the 950s and 60s, that was comparable to like 1,000+ pounds today. You know, in equipment. You know, the way things have changed in the mindset. You know, I'd be like, I ain't getting no monolift. I'd get all fired up. I about almost pressed the thing over my head. Hey, there is a good story about this. Is it Jesse Burdock? Is it Jesse? Who's the Mark Bell's sidekick?
Jesse Burdick.
Yeah, Jesse Burdick. He came up to me in the warm-up room at the Arnold this past Arnold, and he says, "Hey, me and Mark were talking, and Mark was at the Arnold compete with you guys did PO, and he says one of the biggest things he remembers about you is you were warming up and you had like 720 on the bar." And you were so pissed off. He said, "Look like you were going to shoulder press it off your back when you took it out of the rack and put it back in." And I forgot all about that, but I actually remembered it when he said it, because I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "Man, I'm getting old, man. This stuff's going by so fast." But anyway, it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of crazy stuff though. But it was the WPO have nothing but the awesome respect for. I thought it was ran great. A lot of tough competition. A lot of tough competition.
Yeah, I mean
For
the
multiply.
names that you mentioned there is kind of like a who's who of the guys I read about in Powerlifting USA when I was coming up in the sport, you know?
Chuck
Yeah.
Vogelpohl.
Yeah, all the
Chuck
West Side
Vogelpool,
guys.
yep, Mr. Yep, Mr. Yep. He was there was a lot of good lifters. The MASH guy, what's his first name?
Travis
Travis
Mash from
Travis, yeah, good lifter, man. I know
Yeah.
Travis, a good guy. Yep. Yeah, really good lifter.
from Appalachian State. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. There was some, and I know I'm probably forgetting some names, but there was but we were in the back. And what was so cool is to watch Ronnie Coleman come back there because him and Goggins were friends. And, Ronnie's such a great guy, a very humble guy. And he just was like, oh my God, I can't do his voice, but he was just be commenting how big everybody, this guy, he's like muscles on top of muscles. But, he was only about 290, 300 pounds. So when you're sitting back there with Gary Franks and all those other guys back there, you don't look that big,
Right.
when you're back there with all those monsters back there. Good times. It was definitely good times. I definitely enjoyed my stay there for sure. 100%.
Wait, yeah. Probably saw Wade Hooper back there a little bit, maybe.
Oh, yep. He came in on some of those. Yep. Mr. Wade. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was, we did a lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. That's how they did it. And you didn't get paid off formula. You got paid off on who had the heaviest lifts in those categories. So, like, I think we had was 275 and 308 supers were together, if I remember, or something like that.
That sounds right.
And so whoever had the highest total got the money.
Yeah,
the big money. And then what they did was they gave you prize money for each individual weight class, first to third. So like you'd have a 275-pound class, 308 in the supers, you'd have a separate first, second, and third, and you had an overall first, second, third for everything. So that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
I remember
everybody got a chance to win money.
Like, if anybody hasn't seen any of this stuff, to Google some of these, YouTube some of these WPO finals, because they're wild. They're like a professional wrestling meet, kind of like showmanship. People are working the crowd up,
It's like pyrotechnics and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You see, everybody's got a little.
Yeah, they love it. You
something to do. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because like the USA powerlifting IPF meets at the time, like, it's not been that long since we've introduced like music and MCs and stuff like that. Like seriously, that's been, it's been less than 10 years since all that stuff has been introduced. So like those meets at the time, people used to comment about them. People thought that they were boring. I personally never felt that way. Like it's a powerlifting meet. Like you're there to do powerlifting stuff, but people definitely seem to enjoy the more of a production.
But it is, and you're right. There's more of a wow factor to it now.
Yeah, and I mean, like if that was one thing I was going to ask you about, Beau, is comparing the WPO days at the Arnold to what the Arnold is now, with USA Powerlifting running it. Like they've got 7 different competitions all over the weekend, and like this year, like production wise, I mean, there's not actually things exploding, but it's right up next to that, right? Like they have,
pretty wild. They got the digital back screen.
Yeah, I mean, that's really impressive.
Yeah. I think they've come a long way in a good way. I think they come a long way in the right direction when it comes to that. And even for a guy like myself, I'm like, I want to make sure I can get qualified for whatever events I can, because that's where the show's at. So it has come. It's come a long way from when I think they first got introduced. If I'm not mistaken, I remember Rob Keller was trying to talk me in to doing the first Raw meet at the Arnold. And I think it was 2008, maybe was the first one. Is that right, Mike? 7 or 8?
2008 was the first year the USAPL was at the Arnold. Yeah.
So I remember Rob Keller coming to my work trying to talk me into going. He says, I can get you in. And but Eric Talmott was beating on me because he was just starting his first Raw United, the rum meet.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
remember those.
and he was like, "Beau, I need you, man. We need you here to get this thing going." So, I stayed. But yeah, so from the days of 2008 to where it is now, my point is this really has. It's come really It's really came a long way.
Yeah.
And it's really good. I enjoy it.
I think it's interesting too that there's a lot of, or not a lot, but a decent amount of sort of what I consider drug-free lifters that were crossing over from ADFPF or from NASA or whatever and doing these big, sort of multiply untested meets. And then that's completely stopped now, right? You're never going to see that again, pretty much, or very little. I mean, you'll see
I think
Dennis Cornelius try to do it or something like that, but it seems like people have clamped down on that type of thing. I don't know if you want to comment on that or sort of that evolution.
Yeah, I don't have a problem commenting on that at all. I've always been the outlaw of powerlifting. USAPL was my home, but sometimes I felt like there was a time I wasn't the favored son because I represented the brand and I was proud to go anywhere and compete. And I didn't like that we kind of looked down on that. I kind of thought that was not cool. We'll talk about them. I think when you got these stars, I think it just makes your brand stronger when you can take a guy like Dennis, and Dennis can go and compete on that platform and not just do well, but win. I'll give you a perfect example. 100% Raw is very good. Well, go back to 2006, right? 2006, we did the nerve meet. A lot of people don't know this. 2006, you know what Paul Bossy did? Paul Bossy showed up to the nerve meet and out of meet tested me right there on the spot. So what he did was he was smart. What did he do? He built his brand. He went back, made sure that his organization know that, hey, Beau Moore lives here. We tested him. I out of meet tested him while he was doing that Raw meet. See, I think to me, I just think that, first of all, you feel proud, because you could do that. And also you're helping someone's brand now. So I'm not saying there's not other ways to offset that argument or whatnot. I'm just saying you got guys that, and maybe I was talking to a gentleman, I won't say his name because I don't want to anybody, go after him or whatnot, but I was, link him in, but we were having a talk. And one of the things I told him was, I don't understand why we don't say, if we're really on that, USAPL should go, these will back the person that goes. Like say if John Smith wants to go lift in the open cup meet at the USPA, we're gonna back that guy. We're gonna pay his entry fee. We're gonna back him. Only thing you did is you just made the USAPL and the IPF brand bigger. That's all you did, in my opinion. You didn't take away from it. You just made it better. So that's what anyway, you asked that question. That's what I think.
No, I get it, man. I mean, I always wonder about that. If you're sort of at the top of the sport, like, you've been there and Dennis has been there, and I'm trying to think of other folks, Brian Siders.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure if you're up there and you're sitting at home thinking, I wonder how I stack up to these guys that are doing something a different way. Can I show up? I may or may not win, but can I hang in there? Can I throw down?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more respect for that than what I've always gotten along with everybody. That never was an issue, and everybody knew the score, and we didn't even have to talk about it. It is what it is. They know, and but at the same time, I know, so I can't. I don't care. If I did, I shouldn't be there. But it's what you just said. But if you think you have the ability, and if that's what you have a passion for, you should be allowed to do that without being penalized. You can still have the ability, but not have the passion to do that. Don't get me wrong. But if you have the ability to do that, you shouldn't be penalized for that, in my opinion. If anything, if I was, forget if I was, because I'm not going to get involved. It's like someone sits armchair quarterback. But my opinion would be, if running an organization, I would try to figure out how to embrace that. And I don't know if we will, because you got the IPF or whatnot, but the end of the day is whether we like it or not, lifters make or break the organization. It only takes one movement and you get a big snowball going. The next thing you know, whether you're called the IPF or you're called the USAPL or you're called the Easter Bunny on Paradise. That thing will blow up in your face if you're not careful.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen that, right? A lot of organizations have blown up. USPF is barely anything anymore. WPC is barely anything anymore.
Exactly right.
APF was pretty big down here in Florida for a while. I never see anything of them anymore, you know? So, yeah, I agree. And I think it is the lifters, right? I mean, the excitement of the meets or seeing people throw up big numbers. And if you don't have that, you don't have that. I'd love to. Can you talk about what the Mountaineer Cup was too? I don't know if people know what that is.
Skipped over that a little bit.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Well, the Mountaineer Cup was basically, we were on TV for ESPN. You know, so anybody who was drinking at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, they got to see us on tape delay. You know,
it's like that Wild World of Sports kind of thing, almost, right?
Yeah, Wild World of Sports. It didn't come on till like 10 minutes to 2 before it's time for closing. You know, but no, what it was a USPF function. I mean federation, and basically what it was is we would be we were at most of the times we were at the Harv in West Virginia casino, and we were competing there. And it was single ply, you know, all single ply gear, USPF rules, and you didn't have as many guys. And I always chalked it up because guys didn't want to take their double ply stuff, multiply stuff off of the single ply. But it was the judging was really hard. So, you know, because like kind of what Mike was talking about earlier, you know, the WPO was a great show. But if you weren't careful, some of the squats were a lot questionable a lot of times, you know, the depth of the squats, for whatever, you know, but so when Dave Jeffries, you know, they just would really, you know, you had to squat, you know, you wasn't just getting there. But it was also awesome. It was great competition. I think one year I had we had partners, and I was partnered up with Dan Lass. And we won first place, and we won $10,000. He got 5, and I got 5, and we beat Siders and his partner by 5 pounds. That was pretty cool, you know. But yeah, man, I've seen some really great lifting there. I mean, it was you know, again, you know, it's sacrifice your ego for the money. Perfect example. I think if you're on that open powerlifting, I think I total 2353 was my highest total, and my multiplied total was like 2557. You know, but that was in the same year, right? That's basically the same era, but it was all about the money, you know. You know, it was good prize money, you know, so it's, you know, just you went to the next event. You know, that's how it was. Yeah, but it was good. It wasn't as big, it was definitely boring compared to the WPO. If you're talking about that aspect. Yeah, right. I mean, there wasn't a wow factor.
Yeah, it's not the same kind of production, right?
No, yeah, there you go. That's the right word. Yeah, it was not even close. No. It was a powerlifting meet. You know, it was a powerlifting meet, but no, it wasn't like that at all. No.
And when you're talking about getting out of gear, one of the first things I remember sort of reading about or hearing about, especially living down here in Florida, was those Raw Unity meets, which I think you mentioned with Eric Tellman.
Yeah.
And I remember that also kind of drawing on people from all different federations and sort of training styles. I don't know. And that sort of died out. I think Eric got tired or something like that. But love to kind of, if you could talk about that, what that first Raw Unity was like, and how many times you competed there and what you thought.
4 times total. The first one was more of a groundbreaker, like a powerlifting meet. The second one, actually, Mike was there at the second one.
Yeah.
It was a little bit better for a production.
Guys are both banned.
Yeah. Sorry. Was I allowed to say that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's where I met Mike's dad for the first time, I think, at the second one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was there.
His father was with you. And then the third one was a bigger production for us. It really jumped in. Wouldn't you say, Mike, it kind of jumped because we went to the rec center and they had more banners. It was a little bit, maybe because it was a TV. They had more TV involved than they did on the first and second one. My opinion, where they ruined it is when they came up with this idea of one day being sleeves and the next day being knee wraps. You can't. Can I talk on that?
Yeah, you can talk on that. Talk about Raw with reps. Talk about Raw with reps.
That's interesting.
That's That's not what you wanted to say, Beau.
Dude, what, Beau? When did you get tongue-tied, man? I feel like you've never missed words before.
No. Well, here's the thing: is this again? It's just there was a time that they did away with it. There was a time that they compared the raw with wraps with raw with sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2010, I had the heaviest total in the world. But then yet with Robert Wilkerson, he was a good lifter, good squatter. I think he did 2,200, but he had knee wraps on. And I'm like, how do you compare that? And then we finally changed it. But then some of the arguments are about, I lift raw and I lift with wraps. And this is the humans again. Us humans, we're amazing. We muddied the water again. So not only do we do raw and we wraps, we call it classic raw. Then for the people who do like to wear wraps, which there's nothing wrong with that, you made it harder for them because you don't make clarity of a 2-meter wrap versus a 2.5 or a 3-meter or a 25-meter wrap, whatever they use. So forget the people who don't wear wraps. For the people who wear wraps, it's an unfair advantage. Depends on where you lift.
It's called the Donnie Thompson wrap. That's the long wrap there.
That's just doesn't make any sense to me. It's just kind of like. I think it's dumb, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't mean dumb that you lift with wraps. I'm just saying when you look at the raw wraps, and if you want to say wraps versus sleeves, somebody would say, well, sleeves, you can get, if you put them on tight, you get something. And you guys know this. I'm telling you right now, in early 2000s, when I had somebody wrap my knees with some old red lines, I could get 100, 120 pounds out of those knee wraps. And that's back in 2003, 2004. So that's not even counting how those things are made today. So you can't tell me if someone knows how to crank down on them things, you're not getting anywhere from 150 to over 200 pounds out of a pair of knee wraps.
I've heard stories about.
You got wraps with the monolift, without a monolift, walked out, deadlift bar. I mean, it does get confusing,
Yeah.
Yeah, but with the raw with wraps and just for the people who like to lift in wraps, I feel bad for them because it depends on what federation you're going against.
You're talking about like in these open lists, right? Like the rankings or something like that.
Yes,
that raw with wraps is all kind of lumped together regardless of,
Correct.
Yeah.
No one's going to go back and say, what kind of wrap, what meter did you wear?
Right.
Because some federations, you can only wear certain sizes,
Sure.
Anyway,
I remember reading an interview with Donnie Thompson about the first 3,000 total. That's multiply, but I mean, he was talking about, I don't remember what it was, but 3-meter wraps and like 2 suits and everything else. Like just
it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
No, he's a great lifter. He's a guy that took the rules that they had and he made it work for him. I'll tell you what, he's a hard worker though. I like Donnie. Donnie's a good guy. He works hard, man. Good guy.
Well, look how he did raw, man. He was no slouch either.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was going to bring him up earlier. We were talking about the New England record breakers. Like he's a guy that really represented himself well at that meet. He's like, hey, take all the gear off and still strong. And hey, you want to really max it out and do the multiply thing as far, like take multiply as far as you can take it. Yeah, I mean, he did that too. So.
Yeah, that's what I've known Donnie for a long time, and you can't help but just respect. I mean, you just said that's right, Mike. I mean, it's not raw versus equipment. It's he had a very awesome total with the multiply, and he turned around and had a great total in the when we were doing it, paving the way for the Rainn Williamses of the world. When you were the 2160s, 2170s to 2200, that was new for the brain. That was new for us. When I squatted 800 pounds at 45, I was only like the 5th or 6th guy, I think, to ever do it in knee sleeves in that era. So you can see how the brain has changed. 800 is nothing no more to a lot of these young people coming up. It's just changed. You would never think. I remember Donnie telling me at the New England Record Breakers, he goes, "You think a guy could squat 900 pounds raw?" And I knew he was setting me up. I said, "I don't know. I haven't seen it yet." I think he got called on 870 or something. But our brains, the human brain is amazing, right? Our brains just weren't there yet because we didn't even know what raw really was because when we did the New England Record Breakers in 2006, there was no hardcore raw meets before then. So you weren't training raw.
Well, I mean, we talk about it being different sports, right? Like it really is different. Like the training is optimized and it's not like, yeah, you're still lifting weights. Yeah, you're practicing the squat. And even if you're competing equipped, you're doing a lot of your training raw, but it's not optimized for raw strength. It's optimized for equipped performance. And that makes sense because that's what the competition is, but then like you see just, so I'm a big training guy. So you see differences in training habits between then and now, if you go back into the early 2000s, like West Side style training was a lot more popular than it is now. And then also even guys that aren't doing that are, squatting once a week, deadlifting once a week, now it's commonplace to have all those training sessions be a lot more frequent, and the volumes are different. You're not having to fiddle around with equipment and try to figure out what the heck you're doing with that. And the optimization is completely different. So to just like, I'll take the gear off, I'll train for 8 weeks or something and go to this New England record breakers and see what I can put up. Like that's, a 2,300 total at that meet is different than I've been training for this format of competition for 5 years or something.
Absolutely. It's a great point. It just, it's just, like you said, it's changed, and just even the science behind a lot of stuff has changed. I'm a lot of times people ask me, what's your training, what's your training, how do you do your training? And, for work, I have a lot of responsibility at work. So I do a lot of analyzing, I work with a lot of people and, people, whatnot. And so my whole career has been basically analyzing and dissecting things, over and over and over again. So when it comes to my training, one of the things I had to be careful with is knowing that I will analyze something. So in the training, I always had to gear myself around. I need to be attacking, don't analyze, attack. So I come up with these kind of weird theories. Are kind of kooky, but they really work for me. I take the approach simple is hard. Someone goes, how can you say simple is hard? If you take a simple approach, you can't disguise the rebuttals. It does a good job of taking the rebuttals away from you. So, and then all of a sudden there's now the only thing is left in front of you is just getting the work done. And then the last person you got to talk to is you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, it's time to go face the demon, baby. We got to get this done, So, and that's really worked well for me over the years, especially when, you start handling heavier weights. And then you see the new generation coming up. You mentioned West Side. Back then, a lot of the training was geared around how to maximize the gear. Those this better than I know, can explain it better than me, but those partial lifts and different dynamic assistant work and all that stuff, that was just getting you strong, like you were kind of saying, wherever the equipment stopped, wherever it stopped giving you what you needed. And then the raw lifting was, when you get to really trained about it, it really tests you because, there is no spring. And your body actually, what's the right way to say it? I would say, I want to say develop, but I think my body actually got stronger the more years I put in with the raw lifting and not even putting on the equipment. I really do. I think it just got overall, like we were talking about the core strength earlier.
Yeah.
I just think it really got stronger. I'm a big fan of it.
I think that's a point worth lingering on for a minute. Like you're talking about, simple things are hard. Simplifying the training process, giving yourself no excuses. I don't know, just listen to you talk about like the things that motivate you and kind of what keeps you going in competition. That seems like a format that makes sense,
Yeah, it's really something that I've always done. I understand what I'm doing. I purposely try to put myself in that frame of mind. Dominique commented one time where that's kind kind of chuckle. We're talking about the demon, you know. And I remember I got on Instagram, you know, my kids were busting my chops, you know. So I get on Instagram about the demon, but it's true, right? I mean, you know, Mike, you've done a lot of great things for the sport. You're a great lifter, done a lot of great things for the sport. The end of the day is when you put that training cycle on, I don't care who you are. When you're doing you get down that last 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, that's when all the tricks. That's when your brain's go. Your brain. I don't care who you are. Your brain is going to push you to think negative before you can get to that positive state where you can attack that weight. When you get down to those last several heavy sessions, did I get enough sleep? Did I eat right? Oh my God, the wind's blowing out of the east. You know, whatever it is, you know, and then you just gotta, you know, shake it off. So like some of the things I'll do, right? You know, I was horrible about stretching all that. So, you know, I got some inflammation in my nerves and everything through my elbows and my wrist and everything. And sometimes I'll be benching and, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels like someone's just sticking knives through me. I mean, I probably didn't warm up properly or whatnot. But then, so a little trick I'll do is this. I'll go to my bag. If you notice in the meets, I don't wear, very seldom you'll see me wear wrist wraps in the meets. You know, you'll see me wear them. So I'll go to my bag, right, and I'll be getting myself in a frenzy, and I'll pull my wrist wraps out. I always carry them with me, and I start to wrap my wrist real tight and everything. And then I look at myself and I said, "Oh my gosh!" I'll say a couple choice words that I won't say on the podcast, but basically I'm calling myself the biggest sissy in the world. I got to have my little wraps on, woo woo woo. My nerves are flaring up. Oh my gosh! And I'll rip them suckers off, and now I'm in attack mode. You know, I went out of thinking mode and I went right back to attack mode. And, you know, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. And I know I'm sure the listeners do too. When you are forced to attack, it's amazing the strength levels you have at that period, that moment, the energy levels you have to move something. It's just like this. If you're walking on the street, walking your dog, and you see someone get in a car wreck and there's a car laying on top of somebody, your natural reaction is to go over there with everything you have and see how much you can move that vehicle to hopefully save someone's life. And you hear stories about things like that all the time. I don't know if you ever find that in your weight training, but that's what I always tell people. That's what you're really looking for. How do I find that little bit right there where everything doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm in a crisis mode and it's, you know, I'm in the fight for my life. Now I know it sounds a little extreme, but that's how I think, or I attempt to put myself in that type of situation. You know, I know probably guys are probably thinking this guy's nuts. How much cup of coffee did he have?
Man, I've seen you at the meets, man. I don't think yeah, this is pretty typical. This is kind of toned down for you, Beau.
No, man. I mean, this jives completely with how I've seen you lift. I don't know, man. I feel like I understand the Beau that I see at competitions a lot better, you know, after hearing you talk about it for a little bit. You know,
right?
It makes sense completely to me.
Well, and I've had people say, not they'll say, but you hear sometimes, I don't know why he does all that, or why is that? What is it? It's a state of embarrassment, right? So all of a sudden, as you're hollering and hooping and hollering, you're getting yourself in the state. Now you've really put the pressure on you because now you really got to go out there and attack because you don't want to miss.
Yeah, nobody wants to see you jumping around, hollering, come out for a deadlift, and it doesn't even break off the floor, right?
Exactly. And that's happened to me on several occasions too. So I've had the bad end of those situations as well. So it's all good.
Sure.
Well, yeah. When I've done the animal cage, you know, I think I've done it 4 years in a row. I didn't do it this year. And a couple times I legitimately totaled 2,000 pounds in less than 30 minutes. From warm-ups all the way through with knee sleeves on. And it's the same thing. You know, I get all ramped up and I'm just in a frenzy, man, for 30 minutes. I mean, I am literally in a frenzy and I'm just attacking and attacking. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm completely exhausted. You know, at 50-some years old, I don't even care if you're 50, you're in your 20s after you do something like that. You're just beat. But the how I get through it is I just put, you know, I'm hollering and screaming and shaking the fence and people are looking at you. And really what I'm doing is I'm not just getting them fired up, man, I'm putting the ultimate pressure on myself. You know, you got to, you know, I mean, here it is, big dog, you know. So
So what's it like for you after a competition like that? Are you pretty fried after that and you take a week off?
Oh,
What happens?
man, let me tell you something. I am just like my grandfather. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Man, anybody who knows me well, I'll go back to listen. I came to the Arnold, man. I thought I was going to have a great bench day. I really did. I felt like the starts were just really long, but it is what it is. I crushed 496 and I missed 524 twice, and I was just so disappointed. And I get back before I even start back on the road again. I'm already made my mind up. I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm back training on Tuesday. Tuesday, I'm in there. I mean, but that's typical of me. Always my whole life. I mean, there's been a couple times I take a week off, but if I don't have a good meet, without a doubt, which I shouldn't, I'm back in the gym as soon as possible. Which is
No
stupid.
time off.
Which is stupid, but that's where I'm at.
I don't know. I mean, so there's a difference. Like, I mean, okay, so
No, I
you can
mean
make the
banging
argument that
heavy.
you
I
need
mean
the
going at it
time.
like a wild man. I don't mean.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm tracking with you, but I think the argument, for taking the time off, it comes from a like a body standpoint. It's good for your healing, good for probably your longevity and so on. And it's probably a good moderate long-term decision, but like what you're describing isn't about the strength gains right now. It's about, you had a bad meet and you need this for your sanity,
Yes.
like it's not about the physical at that point.
That's true. That's exactly. That's well put. That's well put. One of the things that's probably when I really, it probably didn't really start creeping into me until I was about 43, 44. One of my things I came up with myself as a reason to train heavy a lot is I do believe, I do know this. This is what I do feel. And I'm sure a lot of older people are listening to this. They would agree it's been lifting for a while or they're trying to attempting to move heavy weights. Obviously when you're younger, you take time off and you recover and it's good for you. When you get older, you can't take that same amount of time off.
Hmm.
Because what happens is your body may recover, but your brain starts to doubt. I'm fit. I mean, I'm not an old man, but I'm in my 50s. I mean, I want to be able to take 500 pounds out no matter how, any day of the week, any time, so I have to be careful how long it takes me to get there. You know what I'm saying? You have to be, for me, I had to be careful with that because like I was saying earlier, we were talking, the last thing you want, because it's going to happen. You don't want your brain interfering with you. Is this it? Am I too old? It's okay. I've done enough. Can I stop? Do you want to stop? And then you have to ask yourself, is that really how you feel? Or is that just a justification because you're unsure, but you really don't want to stop? Those are tough questions to ask yourself, and I think you can relate to that to any age, but as you get older, those are some of the things that cross my mind. So when those things start to come in, it drives me to keep pushing, because that's what I kind of go through with myself. I'm not saying everybody goes through that. That's just kind of what I go through.
Well, how do you work through stuff like that then? So like you have some of those doubts that kind of creep in or just the
perfect
question
example.
of a doubt, I guess.
Tuesday night, I do this little Bulgarian training program where I do a lot of singles, like this. And I know you've probably read about this, Mike,
Okay.
So I like that 3 times a week where you're doing like the 50, 60, 70, 80, 85, 90, 95, and 100, and you do it 3 times a week,
Okay.
So I'm doing it. So I was supposed to go, and this is just example of, I don't think this is too smart, but I won't recommend this. So I'm going up. So my top set's supposed to be 505. I get up to 505. I don't know what happened. I didn't fire off well, but I did it. And I'm still sore from the meet. I'm still kind of tore down from all the training for the meet, And I get up and I know I can't go home like that. I should be able to. That's just crazy. But I'm so stubborn, which I think actually helps me a little bit. So I do the old Beau Moore trick. I take 5 pounds off and I say, now I know I'm not interested in the college try. If I take 5 pounds off, you can't leave without getting that thing off your chest. And I got videos of it. I got videos me missing 505 at the top and me just crushing 500. Like, 5 pounds don't make that difference. But, again, you're back to the mind psyche. So things like that. And then Thursday night, I'm doing the program again. I get to 475, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels terrible. I'm feeling sorry for myself. So then I drop down and put like 55 pounds of chains and work up to like 455, 460 with 55 pounds of chains on there. I don't recommend doing that for people to do that, but I think there is a thing where, man, you really shouldn't do that. But I also think if your body can handle that, for your brain, you couldn't ask for a better medicine. Yeah, you could. Because when I walked out of there going, you know what? For an old man, I was kind of beat up and I was kind of whining, but man, I dropped all the way back down again and went up to 455 with 55 pounds of chains on there. Huh. Okay, I'm good. But so when I come home,
finding something to win in each session, right?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the way it should be all the time. I think I've even talked to you about this one time before. I think I'm almost to the point that I may even have somebody just do a program for me, and me just shut my mouth and shut my brain off and just follow the program.
It seems like your personality is really good for that, Beau, is following someone else's program.
Right. No, hey, I think there's a lot to be said for doing a program that.
Hey, both of you. I don't think Mike's ever had a coach do a program for him neither. So y'all can you could be little buddies there and program for each other.
Well, they ask you on that with the athlete locator form you always got to fill out every quarter. Who's your coach? I go. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, Beau, I'll write a program for you. You write a program for me, and neither one of us will do it.
Yeah, you're gonna look at mine and go, no way, man. I put too much hard work to do this simple, mind.
Honestly though, man, I think there's a lot to be said for organizing your training in a way that allows you to create wins. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, and different ones speak to different athletes based on their personality, but I mean, for some people, maybe they can feel like it's a win if they, get an extra rep or, do something, another exercise, add an extra set, something, it allows a win, some people it's got to be the heavy weights. It's got to be more poundage on the bar, but I think having the win, and like you said, it doesn't have to be every single session, but the more sessions where you can create a win, I think the better off you are.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this. Because some people ask, well, don't you feel like you're tearing yourself down? I said, you'd rather have that problem than the problem of being scared and not tell nobody about it when the weights start to get heavy. I said, you'd rather have the problem of having to learn how to dial back versus, you can kid all your friends or your family, whatever, but you can't kid yourself when you get scared, if you get scared. So you rather have, I'd rather have a challenge of, and I think everybody can get there. Everybody's different, but everybody has their own hot buttons, and how does an individual find out what they are? I think there's 100 ways to the finish line on that. I don't think there's one system fits all, but everybody has it. Everybody has it. It's just, how do you go find it? It's a mental game. You can't do anything physical unless you're mentally prepared. You just, and I think everybody, if you were taking and Mike, I'm sure you and Dom, I'm sure you guys know this. Most people can answer the questions. If you're giving them a test, they can really answer the questions. The real thing is who's going to execute. It's just like education, right? You can go get your degree and get educated, but after you get that, I tell my daughter, I said, then you got to execute. Now it's time for execution. Because you can get all the plaques on the wall you want about how smart you are, but if you can't execute it, you wasted a lot of money on that education. Same thing in lifting, man. You could be the smartest guy in the world, the smartest girl in the world, but if you got that fear, when it gets down to the last 3 or 4 weeks and you got to go face the demon no matter who you are, you got to face it because it's there.
That's for sure.
There's a lot more to, man. I don't think enough people give enough weight to the kind of thing that you're talking about right now, because I was talking to a friend of mine and we were talking about how the training process itself is a skill. Like we talk about, there's a skill in doing the lifts and strength itself in some ways is a skill, but people think of your training program as, hey, this is your training program and you just do it. But there's a skill in the execution of that training program.
Yes.
And that's really what you're hitting on, like, hey, your program says that you've got to do X amount of weight. And for you, if you've got to use the wrist wrap trick, if you've got to use whatever it is, I mean, that's what you're talking about facing the demon is
that's right.
Is the skill in executing the training, doing your job with the execution of the training. And I mean, that's a hard thing to talk about too. Like, I mean, you're doing I've never found a way that I'm real comfortable talking about this. Like, how do you teach somebody to do that? So
that's a good point. And then on the teaching piece, it's almost like, well, it's almost you are teaching them by talking to them about it and saying that's your job to go find out what that is as an individual.
Yeah. Well, and then I would imagine for you too, like if you do train with somebody, then they can see how you do it. It's kind of a tacit thing that you learn by observing, you learn by doing.
Yeah, it happens to me sometimes. Like I train by myself, but people be in the gym, they just hang out with or talk to. And then and I'm always in there goofing around and cranking it up, and we're all having a good time. It's like we're in a WWE or something, And then every now and then, I'm not on my game, and all of a sudden, the guys will say, "Hey, come on now, be the leader," or something like that, and just little things. And as soon as I hear it, a light switches off because I'm saying, you're feeling sorry for yourself, or they wouldn't said anything to you, and you know it. And I won't acknowledge. I mean, I'll say, "Oh yeah," but my other part of my brain be going, "That's right. You're not there." And that's their way. That's just their little way of reminding you, without saying too much, that you're not there, and you're not there. So, are you going to get there, or are you just going to feel sorry for yourself? Because if you are, just pack your damn bag up and go home. Go home and watch Netflix. I love Netflix, by the way. Yeah. So, I like all that stuff. I didn't know I had Netflix for 3 years till my kids told me I've been paying for it. Now it's like crack. I'm hooked on it.
You watched the Great British Bake Off, right?
No. I like Frontier, Last Kingdom, all that good stuff.
You could tell the truth, man. Masterclass baking show,
Yeah, no. I would watch it. It just hadn't got there yet. No.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Maybe though. No, but the sport has been great to me. I've met a lot of great people. I've met a lot of cool people, and I'm very fortunate to have lasted this long. And I hope, good Lord willing, I can keep going. And I've really, really enjoyed my time in the sport. And I can honestly say I probably enjoy it now in my 50s than I did in my 30s, maybe even early 40s, because here's a justification. I'm getting ready to give you one. If when I have a bad day, I get to hang on I think I told you this before, Dom. I get to hang on my age. Well, it's not that I'm an old man, but I'm getting older. So, whatever, versus, when you're in your prime, you're like, but there's that animal inside of me that still thinks I can hang with everybody, and whether that's true or not, that I still believe that. I believe, that just keeps me grinding and going.
So how long are you going to hang on for? Like, how are you going to keep going? How long? Foreseeable future? Do you have any limits there, or how do you set it for yourself?
No, man. If I had a dime for every time they asked me in my 30s, I'll probably keep going to the day they put me in the box. When I want to get a lot of stuff done in my 50s, and when I get to my 60s, if I'm still able. When I say I'm still able, man, I'm doing great, man. I've been very fortunate. I haven't had any major injuries, haven't had any surgeries or anything like that. Not that anything couldn't happen. I just. Man, I wouldn't know what I'd do with myself. I guess I would. I told myself if I didn't do powerlifting, I would do kettlebell stuff, But gosh, I think I don't know if I can. I believe that's going to sound terrible. I believe if I just keep pushing, I may get back up to 600 pounds one day. Now, whether I get there or not, I don't know. But I definitely think I can get back up to 550. I just did 530 in the gym about a month or so ago. So
550 is right there. It's 20 pounds.
Absolutely. See,
right there,
brother. Butter from the duck, baby. Let's get after it. See, we're getting fired up already. I train tomorrow at 9:00. That's awesome.
See you on the platform, Beau.
See you on the fly. That's right, my friend Donnie Thompson. No, but those kind of things, it just kind of drives you a little bit, and it's and there's a lot of great lifters out there. There's and guys, as you guys are getting older, you see it. People. It's more accepting, or it's just, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but man, it's changed for the older people in athletics, especially in powerlifting. It's more than it's just growing. The people who are doing well in the sport, the older they get. It wasn't like that 10, 15 years ago. We won't even go just that far. It's just starting to really, we're just pushing health and fitness and training and all that stuff. And then with all the new ways of, we're breaking stuff down scientifically, everybody's reaping the benefits from it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Hey, Beau, I got Dom, I don't know how many other questions you had lined up, but I had one more that I want to ask.
Absolutely.
Who would you say is the most impressive lifter you ever saw?
Tony Conyers.
Yeah? Didn't even have to think about it.
Nah. I've known him for a long time, and I know you know Tony, Mike.
Yeah.
But I've known him from the time he was, 37, 36, when I was in Tampa, and just the things I see that man do and has done and still can do. I've never witnessed anything. No, so he's the first one. The other one is, I remember in 2013 when I seen Rainn Williams squat like 869 for the first time. I told everybody, Jim, I said, you know what? I don't know everything, but I've been around a long time. That man will be the best squatter we've ever seen in our lifetime. I mean, that guy's unbelievable. He's unreal. And not only is he unreal in the squat, it's just amazing to watch how he took barely doing a 700-pound deadlift, how he's worked that thing up in the 800s.
That's what's crazy to me, man. People don't talk about that enough. That deadlift came out of nowhere, man. That is incredible, especially as a big guy. As you know, as I know, it's not always easy to get into that position there and rip on that, man.
And in 2013, I had to beat him to the punch. This is like my claim to fame, but no one really knows about this, but it's kind of funny. So in 2013, I was 48. I totaled 2105 at a NASA meet with sleeves. Well, at that time, that became the drug-free open powerlifting record, for the super heavyweights. And then Ray had a little total of, at that time, 2134. And so at 48 years old, at one time, I got the plaque in my office. I was the, for the rankings. And, so, I was pretty proud of myself I think it was 48 or 47. I think I still might have been 47. I was 47. And, but besides that, I thought that was a great accomplishment. But Jimmy, you just watch this guy, this young man. I'm a fan. I give praise where praise is deserved. I've never seen anything like that before. And there's a lot of great lifters. Tony will always be. Tony always comes to mind because Tony's never pumped his own self up. He never does. He's not. That's just not his gig. He's kind of like Dave Ricks in that manner. Dave Ricks is awesome as well. Ed's awesome. But, just knowing Tony and seeing all the things that guy's accomplished over the years, and still at 60, he could probably beat almost every 148er in the country. I don't care what federation it is. I don't know if you know this, Mike. He benched 424, 148 at 57 years old. Raw.
No, I didn't know that. One thing, I don't remember what his lifts were, but it was down in Florida, one of those Raw United or Raw Unity meets. Tony showed up and, just blew the doors off. Just really impressive, super strong dude. And talking to people afterwards, it's like, well, he kind of doesn't even train. He comes in like 3 weeks out, lifts weights a couple times and shows up at the meet. And just
that's true. When we were younger, he still works for the same liquor company, and he's a pastor. Great guy. He's worked for the same liquor company for like 30 some years. So I would get there. We were all in Tampa at that time. I was with my I think Tony's about 37, 38. I used to watch him. It was amazing. This is when he'd drink a little. He don't drink anymore or anything like that, but he drank a couple beers. He was always laid back. He'd walk in. He had his Dickie shorts on and his liquor shirt buttoned up tight. Walk in, sit down, drink a beverage, just talk to everybody nice and quiet and talk. And and on Wednesdays we would do box squats that Ed told us all about back in the day, close stance box squats to strengthen your hips, for the deadlift, the high bar, and then we would do deficit pulls, or we do deficit pulls first. I can't remember, but I think it was deficit pulls first, because he would start out with 315 on the bar with a deficit pull, bend down, put his beer down, and just reach down there and just start cranking him out. And this guy, and Dom, I don't know if you've ever seen Tony before, but Mike has. This guy is just like chiseled out of stone, man.
No, man, he still shows up to USAPL meets down here.
Yeah,
like he's the Central Florida Championship. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just shows up. Now he's total over 1,500 at like age 60, just wandering into the local meet. He don't give.
It's unbelievable, isn't he?
Dude, he is jacked.
He's
like,
he's unbelievable.
Not a lot of fat on him,
There's a lot of guys that are doing well. Of course, you guys are great lifters. Mike, I've competed against you, man. You're one of the best deadlifters I've ever seen. I'm a machine. Thanks, I knew when we would compete, that one the third year, I said, I knew if I was going to have a chance. I had a good day that day, I had a good bench day that day, but I knew if I really wanted to win, I was going to have to pull an 8. And I think I pulled 804 that day. You did.
I think you outpulled me that day. I don't think I pulled
that don't happen too often. That was and then, Blaine Sumner, obviously watching him as a young man coming up, and then great lifter, and, big fan of Dennis. He's just a tank. And I'm sure there's many more that of course, Brad, Brad, Mark Felipe, and all those guys back in the day. I've seen Sean Conlon at the Arnold. That was pretty cool. His deadlift. So, a lot of great guys, that came up with, and, some of us are still going. So it's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic, man. Yeah. Well, man, I've really enjoyed this conversation, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I'm sure I'll think of some more stuff that I wish I would have asked. So we'll have to set up another time and chat with you again sometime. But
well, and I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course.
At the same time, I want to be able to give back to the sport too. So, for anybody listening out there, it's a great sport. It gives you something to do other than just your family. Your family life's important and your work and all that stuff, but it's also good to have a good, healthy outlet too. And powerlifting's been awesome for me, man. There's no doubt about that. It's been great. I wouldn't trade anything about it. Hopefully, like I said, if I'm still able, I can still keep motoring along. I'm sure I've got enough orneriness in me to keep going, so I'm sure that. That's been good.
Fantastic, man. Well, thanks again, Beau. We'll see you at the next competition.
I think you mean to say I'll see you on the platform, Beau.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Oh, you're getting ready for the Worlds, right, big dog?
Going to Tokyo.
That's it. I know.
I'm missing you, man. I thought you were going to be there, man.
I know.
You were like got me hyped up. I said, man, Beau's coming, man.
I know, psych. No, I had some work stuff, and that is a long ride too, man.
It is, man. It's a long ride.
About that plane for 3 attempts. I'm like, I don't know, man. No, but it's good. And the USAPL is a great organization. One thing about, and Mike, kind of go back to what you said. I think it's only getting better. I think they're getting better and better all the time. So I think that's pretty cool too. Other than that, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a blast. I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Beau. Hey, so I really hope you're enjoying these videos. If you like this kind of information and you'd like to get into more depth with it, then I would definitely recommend checking out RTS Classroom. Classroom is an online course that we teach. We launch a new one pretty much every quarter, and it allows us to get into a lot more depth on these topics than we're otherwise able to do, because we can teach you one concept and then build on it in subsequent videos. So if this is something that you want to get more into, you want more information on it, then I would definitely recommend checking out RTS Classroom. I think there's a variety of different courses. I'm sure that you're going to find something that you like, that you want to get more information on. So definitely check that out.
Reactive Training Systems.